Welcome friends to another video, and it's time for me to talk about the house of Mancera again. But this time around I'm going to talk about one of my favorite fragrances from this house. And this is Gold Intensitive Aoud, a fragrance from the Voyage en Arabie collection, a fragrance that was made available for the public in 2008, and the nose behind this one is of course Pierre Montal. This is one of my top choices from this house, mainly because I love the scent, I love the performance, I love the interpretation of the oud note found inside Gold Intensitive Aoud, and I love the way that people react every single time that I'm wearing this fragrance. Also, it's very versatile, it's very flexible. I'm a person who wears this one all year round, mainly because it smells great, it performs great, but at the same time, I want to feel it as long as possible on my skin. It has something that makes this fragrance very sensual, at least for me. Let's talk about the composition of this fragrance because it's very interesting. We have in the top notes water notes and lemon. In the heart we have rose, guaiac wood, teak wood, saffron and geranium. And in the base we have precious woods, white musk and ambergris. So it's not the most complex composition, it's not very subtle either. I do consider it to be quite well balanced. But what's more interesting to me is how it smells. And the scent is really, really nice. It's good for, let's say, cooler days, or why not right now in winter time. But it's also good for warmer days. And you can actually pull this one off even in summer, but beware, only apply one spray and only in the evening if it's cool enough. Those watery notes have a big impact in this fragrance in the way that they interact with the wood. You also have that lemony note inside, which actually doesn't become too, let's say, too acidic as it usually does. And you also get that beautiful combination of woody notes. You have precious woods, you also have guaiac wood, teak wood, but you also get a beautiful dose of spice from the saffron and a beautiful warmth and sweetness from the rose. The oud in this one is very well made. It's not your typical wood, not your typical Mancera wood, and of course not your typical Montal wood if you want. It doesn't come off synthetic, it doesn't come off animalic, it doesn't come off, I don't know, medicinal and whatnot. It's actually feeling real, natural, real balanced, and quite elegant at the same time. It's not overpowering, mainly because it's diluted by those watery notes. And this is the most important thing for me when talking about this fragrance. Let's start with the opening. The opening is very interesting because you have that lemon combined with watery notes or water notes, and you also get a huge dose of oud. From behind comes the rose with all the other elements, especially the saffron, but right behind them is the guaiac wood and the teak wood, also the precious woods, and only afterwards comes from behind a huge dose of white musk to simply make this composition a bit more airy. It doesn't allow the oud to become too dark, and also the other woody notes. The most interesting fact for me is whenever I wear this fragrance, I get a lot of compliments, so it's a compliment getter for me. One of the best in my collection actually. But it's interesting for me how people react to this fragrance. Every single time people tend to believe that I'm wearing a fresh fragrance because this is how they perceive this composition. I myself do not perceive the composition like everyone else. To me, it feels just like a, let's say, woody or a normal woody fragrance, quite depth if you want, quite voluptuous at the same time. But every single one that smells this scent on myself says that I'm smelling fresh, that I'm smelling clean and whatnot. So this is very curious for me because this is what happens every single time. So your perception may differ than everyone else's perception about Gold Intensitive Oud. In terms of performance, this is a very good performer on my skin. And be aware, I have a very curious skin. Basically, fragrances tend to stick a long time on my skin. I manage to get almost every single time with every single fragrance great longevity. In this case, this one gives me about 15 to 16 hours of longevity on my skin, and in terms of projection, it projects really, really great. I get about 3.5 hours to 4 hours, the first ones, very strong projection. Afterwards, I get about 4 to 5 hours of moderate projection, and afterwards, I get about 2.5 to 3 hours of low projection. Up until the end, I still get whiffs throughout the wearing. So very good performance on my skin. I'm not saying that you're gonna get the same performance out of this fragrance or any other fragrance, but due to the chemistry that I have, this one works absolutely amazing for me. In terms of how and when to wear this fragrance, I would say this is a fragrance that's, let's say, for all year round. And also, you can dress it up however you want it. Casual, semi-formal, or formal. This one simply manages to find its, let's say, scenario every single time. So, very versatile, very flexible. In terms of the group age, I would actually recommend this one for a more mature audience, and especially for people who are accustomed to Oriental fragrances, to people who have experience with agar wood or oud. I would say that a more mature audience is better for this fragrance and for Mancera fragrances in general, but younger crowds could still wear this one, and why not actually fall in love with the fragrance and become one of their favorites. But as I said, my recommendation is for a more mature consumer. Very elegant, very beautiful blend. It's a bit linear, to be honest, on my skin, but it doesn't bother me at all, mainly because I love how it smells. And that's the most important thing whenever I go ahead and purchase a fragrance. The first thing that interests me is how it smells, and only afterwards the performance and I don't know, whatever. So if you have the opportunity to test it out, I don't know if you're gonna find Mancera fragrances in fragrance outlets or whatnot, but if you have the opportunity, I encourage you to give it a try. Buy a decant or a sample, try it on your skin, and only on your skin, not on paper. See how it smells, see how it performs, and only afterwards you can decide, based on your own conclusions, you can decide if you want to buy a full bottle or not. To me, this one is one of the most beautiful Mancera fragrances. It's one of my top 3 choices whenever I want to wear a Mancera. This is how good it works for me, but for you, it may not work the same. You may have a different opinion, a different conclusion, so that's why I highly encourage you to test the fragrance first before buying. This pretty much does it for this video. Thank you for watching. As always, my friends, be safe, be good. Peace.